and welcome to another live demonstration. Today I've got lots of things to play with. So what I really want to show you is how you can work differently. So I want to work 3D. So I'm working in one of these Pebeo liquid pouring panels, so it allows you to pour medium into it. I'm working slightly differently. I'm doing it from an art point of view, and I'm going to be using the crystal resin to finish off, and that will give it a 3D effect. The resin takes 24 hours to dry, so I can only show you one stage, but I will explain how you can continue and use the resin for more stages later on. Okay, so I've started to blacken out the frame. It comes in a natural wood colour. Now, depending on what material you're using, you may want to put a layer of gesso on, or a primer like PVA glue or something, because it's natural wood and I found some pens bleed. If that's what you're looking for, it's fine, but just be aware that even when you pour things in, it tends to suck the colour down and maybe dull it a little bit because of it being natural wood. So it's easily solved with a primer. I'm using Pebeo markers. Well, they're acrylic based, and they just cover the natural colour of the wood, and I do find that they don't bleed very much, these pens especially, so they're lovely to be able to just fill out. And I like the black. If I was possibly using the wood in the natural form, I'd probably use a clear gesso or something like that, again giving me a base. So changing to the brush pen in the Posca, so they all have different nibs, and I like the brush because it feels like you're working and you're painting, so I quite like that feel. Use the bigger pen for the outside, and I've even done the back. For me, you don't have to, but for me it just kind of makes it as a whole, and you'll see when I'm finished how that ties together. So now I'm just going round this little goldfish. It's a cheeky little face, and you can see how the pen works. I like the Posca pens. They have so many uses on so many different surfaces. This is wood, so this is one. Works great on paper. I think I've done, the last one I did was the Halloween, and you can see how they cover well and they give a nice solid colour. So I think as a pen they're very versatile, and this in the brush form is just nice to work with, because again, like you would do with a brush, you can use it thicker or very finely using the tip of the brush, and see how well that's covering the raw wood. Go into the fish near the tail, and to be honest, I'm being careful around the outline, but the pens I'm going to use are the Derwent graphic pens, and I actually know they're quite opaque, and they can probably correct and cover any of the black lines which maybe have encroached or have changed the shape a little bit. I shouldn't have done, but it's easy to correct. That's what I'm trying to point out, that nothing, if you go, oh no, that's not where I wanted it, doesn't matter. There are lots of ways of being able to correct things. So a painting you think is lost, put it away, leave it for a couple of months, come back to it, and you'll find it isn't lost, because there are lots of ways you can come back and you can amend. And they're also very useful learning tools. Old paintings, you look back and you see, oh, I don't like that. Oh, because I was looking back. The reason I'm saying this is because I was looking back last night, looking for an old painting, which I want to do. And I was looking back at paintings I did a long time ago and thinking there's not enough light or dark in there. And you can see how you've moved on, and things you've learned from your old paintings to where you are now, which is, it's really helpful, to be honest. So it was interesting looking back, going, oh, that wasn't bad at the time. It still looks good, but now what I know from mediums, from looking at tonal values, you know, I can just tweak a little bit. So nearly done, and you can see how easy that is. It's a one coat. Just want to that bit, and I think as you can see, the original colour is blue, so I'm kind of having to think about this. I might do the eye. I can do that again, but I don't like just seeing the fish staring at me without an eye. Okay, so they were the Posca pens, and you can see how really easily I've covered that natural wood. So now for the fun bit. I'm going to be using my Derwent graphic paint liners. Now these are quite a wet pen. They're a lot of fun. So you need to, with a fine nib, you can see here, you need to activate by pressing down, and that sometimes allows a lot of colour to run out, which you can blow if you put on paper. You can use that. I am trying to just use the pen and put it down as colour, but you see that area that's kind of escaped a bit? Not overly worried because it's water-based. So I can move it using one of these water-filled pens, and I can move it if I've got too much in one area. And again, I'm not worried because I know how opaque and how covering these are. Oops, that's quite runny. So I know I can go back in, I can go over places. I need a bit of a clean. I think clean a bit. Put things down. So just give this clean. Great thing about these is you can clean the nibs, which I think is probably what I need to do. You just take them out and push them back in. So what it is, I've probably shaken it too hard. It's got a lot of bubbles. That's why it's been a bit eager to come out. But you can see there how I've cleaned. And I can fit again. I drop some onto the black. Not a problem. I can just cover it again. So I'm not worried if I've got areas which aren't working as I would expect. So that's better now. It needed a clean.
Anita.
Yes.
Can you say a few quick hellos to people?
Yeah, of course I can.
We don't often do this. Heather is watching. Say hello to Heather.
Hello, Heather.
Ian is watching, who's a regular viewer of ours, and he thinks your goldfish is looking very happy.
He's very happy, chappy. Hello, Ian, and thank you for that.
And Claudine is watching in France, and they've got lots of snow.
Snow?
Yeah, we've got.
I think we had a few flakes the other day, and everybody got very excited, but it literally was a few flakes. Here, where we are, we don't get a lot of snow, to be honest, because we're kind of in a valley, so it kind of, all around us has masses of snow. Where you live, Gary, and you're about 20 miles away, they can be deep in snow. No, we're kind of going, snow? What was that? So that's exciting to have snow in France. Right, so I'm just adding, oops, it's getting a bit keen again. But like I say, I can move it. And I'm giving myself, like I do other times, a base layer. It's a colour layer. Because if I don't plot out or decide where I'm putting colour, I get a little lost. So this is a water pen. Just drop some water through. What I like about this is, put a little bit of yellow in there. I'm not really thinking overly about where I'm putting the colour. I'm looking at the original. I can see where lighter and darker areas are, but I know these pens are so covering, so I'm not overly concerned. So this is a lighter orange, and I don't know if you can see, but there is a little bit of bleed. Again, I'm not concerned. I know about this, that's why I haven't put a primer down. And I actually quite like the way it's a little bit more unpredictable. Into the still wet colour, and it may look a bit scruffy at first, but we can get that together So see how that's bleeding there? That's not a problem. It's quite nice. It works really well on the fish. Even though you think the fish is going to be very smooth and sleek, it still has colours which are blended initially together. So for the initial colours, this is absolutely fine. And I'm just putting colour down, so not worrying too much. Use the pen just to maybe move a little bit. Say that yellow's still quite wet, so it's moving and it's picking up. I'm just being careful not to put, like I did with the yellow, too much down. There we go. You can see how, like I say, I'm not overly thinking about where colour is. I'm aware of where darker colours are and lighter colours are, but it's not what I'm thinking about at the moment, because I can move and improve. And there, I've picked up some orange and it's blending with the yellow. So, going round the lips, it's got really big, looks like it is smiling. So who says animals haven't got characters? Okay, they've got fine tips, and like I say, if you activate and you put more colour down, it will come out a lot more fluid, but it's not what I want at the moment. Here, you can just see the fin, the background on the picture, but it's a little bit more prominent. I've done it a little bit more prominent. So the orange goes up into here. I'm looking, again, using the picture as a guide, so I can see that you do see the lines on the fins, but I'm not overwhelmed with detail. This can all come later. I've said it many times, people get very overwhelmed with detail right at the very beginning, and it's not always necessary. Depends how you're working, but a lot of times it comes together right at the end. So this is a time to have a bit of fun and see where your colours go. Just moving that with, again, the water pen, just to soften up and not have it so roughly textured at the moment. And you'll see I've left lines, it's just to give me a guide when I go in with the darker pen. These pens are actually quite funny. They're called really interesting names. So that was Clockwork, so Clockwork Orange. This is actually the, it's called Herring.
Red Herring.
Red Herring, yeah, of course it is. And I think the next one I'm going to use is called Blood Red. So they've got some fun names, and I think, I don't know which one's purple. Purple's my favourite. It's called Rain, Purple Rain. So look how that is moving and bleeding. The reason being is because the inks are still wet because I used the brush. So just now thinking about maybe to give him or her, I don't know, a bit of shape. So the face comes round here. So there is some bleed, but I'm just adapting myself with that. It's bleeding a little bit more because I've put the water on. But you can see how just putting on a little bit of the darker colour, how that just starts to bring it together. Still very rough. Again, I'm not overly concerned. I just love the bit at the end. This is why I always work very quickly, because it's the bit at the end I like. When it just all suddenly throws itself together. So darker over the top here. And yes, I had a lot more yellow, but I knew I can cover it. I'd rather have colour down than none at all. What I'm being careful to do is not cover all that lovely colour I've put underneath. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
A question from Ian, who wants to know, is it possible to encapsulate, good word, a watercolour painting in the resin that you're going to be using?
Yes.
Can you cover anything?
The only thing that's going to prevent you with the resin is the surface you've worked on. So if you've done it on a watercolour paper, the paper's going to be too flexible to be able to hold the resin. There's two types of resin. The one I'm using is called Crystal. In this range, the Pebeo resins I'm talking about, it's called Crystal, and it's very much more fluid and running. There is another type of resin which is called glazing resin. I have to remember which one's which because I would have thought glazing was runnier, but it's not. What that is you can pour that onto a canvas and it creates a dome. It doesn't easily pour over the edge, so you're able to really control it. So you can use that as a finish for a painting on canvas. I was walking around a gallery and I could see someone had used resin on top of their canvas instead of varnish, and they'd put glitter in as well. It was really fun to see, and you can see where the resin hasn't quite gone to the edge, and I thought that was a really nice effect. But watercolour is dependent on the surface. So I'm not saying no, it can't be. It just depends on what surface you put it on. And if you put something wet again onto a watercolour, you've got the risk of it reactivating. So if you want to do it, I would test and try and find the right way which works for yourself. But I know, like I say, when I was walking around this gallery, I was really impressed and inspired by the artist who put resin on his canvases and just added bits of glitter and things like that. Okay, so just pushing the colour around. What I might need to do is just let it dry, because then I can actually see where the colour's finishing and it's not going to keep moving. So I might start again on this fin and just work myself back while that's drying, because I can still see it's quite wet. Just put an edge on using this yellow, which hopefully will behave itself. Bit of orange. I don't want to put a huge amount of colour because it's quite transparent, and technically you should see the black behind it, but I think that's not going to work, so I'm making the fin a little bit more of a lighter colour, much softer, and that should suggest transparency. I think this is the tail, and that goes over here, goes into the fin there. Drop a bit of water on. So I'm just looking for a much lighter feel on these fins, just to suggest their transparency. Yep, it still looks a bit rough, it still needs work, but what I'm going to do is, I think that's a good time to let it dry, and then what I'll do is I'll come in and start to add detail, and then you'll see how it suddenly pulls itself together. So join us in a minute, and then we will continue with this painting, and we'll put the resin on.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage, and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland, A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing about being a MAP member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I can shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
And we're back.
Hello and welcome back. So that started to dry and you can see how it's changed without me having to do anything. I've also had chance to look, review and think about what I want to do next. So I'm just going to now really start to think about bringing some of the shapes back. So looking about here, it is darker. So this one's called, which one's this one? Tom. Don't know what that one.
Ginger Tom, maybe?
Yeah, well done. Didn't think of that one. See, it's a good job you're there, Gary. I have been wondering about some of the names. A lot of them are very obvious, but sometimes they're just a bit unclear. Okay, so I'm going to start. I don't think that's going to work, so I'm going to go for a darker one. Right, so it's darker here. Let's just make sure we now start to add tonal values. Because I've got colour on, it's going to blend a little easier than the raw wood, but it's still a bit bleedy. And again, I'm not overwhelmed with that. That's fine. That's part of the characteristic of this kind of painting. Okay. Okay. So let's have a look inside here. I just want to keep that characteristic of these lips. I think they're amazing. So I'm going to start to just add a few little details, little scales, because it's a fish, so it will have scales. I'm not going to do it all, and I may change colours just to... I have thought about the direction of the scales. They all go across the back, so I'm making sure that the scales are facing the right way. But you'll see, again, I'm not doing every single scale, and I'll be jumping around. The eye just needs finishing. Here's a lot darker, so I just need to push it backwards. I'm quite sketchy. I'm still thinking about what will add. These are still quite transparent, but I'm just trying to, I might have overworked it a little bit. But I'm going to try, see if I can bring some yellow down, because there you go, I think that helps. These are so great because they just allow you to keep working in, keep adjusting. Okay. So a few little details, and again I'm just going to put some more. Oops. I do find this colour is fading into the, must have lost some definition here. And what's this one doing? Don't know. So let's make it a little bit more solid. Okay. So into the lips, because they're not that light. Lighter orange. Yes, I know this eye still needs doing.
Just mind your left hand. Please.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I think I need a little bit more colour on here. It's not quite enough. There you go, that just works. Let it bleed. I want to make it feel solid. Okay, let's darken this eye here. And now, I don't know how dark this brown goes. Let's just try. What is it called? Brick Lane. Should really have a swatch next to me or a piece of paper so I can just practice and see how dark. That's not dark enough. I'm going to go for the black. Normally don't like to go in with a black, but I think it needs a little bit of adjusting. But I'm not covering all of it. Let's see. So I'm still using the original picture as reference, but like I say, people haven't seen what the original. It's got a little bit, muddy, but I'm just going to add a few dots of white and a few flecks of white into the here, and actually that suddenly brings it back together. I think it's still quite wet, so it's still bleeding a little bit, so I should really just let it dry. Just pick up some white highlights, even bring out some more scales using a different colour. I know this is a new pen, I've literally just got it out, so. So you can see all you need to do is just keep reviewing and looking at parts which don't seem to work. So put a little bit of white in the mouth. I need to darken that off because that's got a little odd. Working, so in with the black. Because I've put the brown in, I'm hoping it will soften. That's not too bad. Okay. Right, step back. More like what I will keep doing is I'll just keep working and fluffing with it, and I think I might have overdone it a little bit. Okay, step back, go in with the white, finish with the white, and then I will put a little bit more texture on. Okay, I'm fluffing now. This is always the risk. Okay, so I'm going to be using Bindex, which is a type of glue. Just cover some areas, dabbing it around, and you'll see why in a minute. It might still pick up some colour because it's not really completely dry. Okay, Bindex. I'll need to make sure I clean that with water, and then just going to drop a few flakes on, and those ones which have not made it into the fish, I can move. So I can pick them up. Okay, put them on. So as much as I'd like it to be a little bit more random, I still have some control. Just dab it up, pick it up. I like the really small little ones. Just give that bit of sparkle. I'm not worried about them going into... See, they come out quite big sometimes. So these are nice gold flakes. But what you can do, you can break it up a little bit. Just get some little pieces. Here. Okay. I think my glue's drying. So that's quite solid. What I can do is I can just break it up a little bit. Okay, that's broken. Okay, I don't like that bit there, so I'll scrape it off. I think glue's dried as well, so things that are drying, I don't want to dry. And other bits are drying, not drying at all, so okay, more glue. And I don't want to overdo it. Let's pick up some of the flakes. I'm sure people are much more controlled than I am. I'm a little bit. Drop it in. It's much easier just to pick it up from the brush. And then you can position it and place it. Stand back. Don't know what this bit's doing. Okay, so the eye just bothering me a bit. It's not as clean as it could be. So now hopefully it's a little bit of chance for it to dry. There you go. I think that's solved that. So put the gold flakes on. It's drying really quickly. So now for the fun bit, and I did this earlier. So I'm just read the instructions to clarify. Pour 1 part hardener followed by 2 doses of crystal. I'm supposed to do it over here. I'm running out of space now, Gary.
Do it near your goldfish then. Do it to the side of him.
Okay. So the resin does come with gloves, and you should use them, but I'm not going to. Again, I like to feel things even when I'm with this, but the gloves are provided, so if anyone is worried about it, you can keep your hands protected. So hardener, it says hardener on this, and 1 part hardener. Now I know how much I need. I'm not pushing tap, it's a safety one. Okay. So I'm going to do these little pots have the measurements, and they're the right way round inside. It's really funny. So I'm going to do 20 mil. Let's take the lid off. $20 mil of the hardener, because that's 1 part, into my plastic cup. I'm sure Gary will play with this once I've finished. Hey, got it this time. And 2 parts, so 2 lots of 20 mil of the thickener. No, the crystal, sorry. So hardener went in first, now the crystal. 1 part hardener, 2 parts resin. Lollipop sticks are essential when doing this. I want to get all of that first part out because the next part has to be accurate. And I know what happens if you don't get it accurately. The resin doesn't harden and it stays sticky. Because the first time I did it, I thought I'd measured accurately, but obviously there was some feature I hadn't followed properly, and the resin didn't hold, it stayed sticky. So I did ask Pebeo about this, what did I do wrong? Because I knew it was something I must have done wrong they didn't know. So every other time I've now really tried to follow the instructions, make sure I'm measured properly, and the other key thing is to stir well, which is possibly what I didn't do on my first one. You know, when you're excited and you want to try something. So I probably did not stir as well as I should have done. Actually, it was easy to solve because what I did, it was tacky, but what I was able to do was put another layer of resin on. Again, stirred well, and this time it covered the tacky surface. So stirring well, I think, is the key. Let's move that out of the way because I know it's going to tip over. It was a bit cloudy when it went in to start with. It's now starting to clear. Can you see that? My hand in the way, Gary?
No,
It's fine.
Let's close up.
And again, I will stir and probably stir a little bit more. Don't worry about the bubbles in it. They do tend to disappear. Sorry, it's just bothering me. I haven't got complete detail on here. So I just want to bring back.
On your head.
I'm sorry. This is where you walk away from things. That's not working. And you come back to them because this is where you can see that's better. Much happier now. Maybe a little bit of that same colour in here.
Have another question.
Yes.
Ian wants to know, is it the same sort of resin used for acrylic resin pouring?
Probably. It's an acrylic resin. I used it on top of a tile when I used alcohol inks. I've used it with the Pebeo MixedMedia, and I've used it this way. So it's a resin, so yes, it would be fine with the acrylic pouring. As long as it will have the hardener and the resin. So it's an epoxy resin. The one thing they don't guarantee is that it doesn't yellow with age, but I think modern technology, because it's epoxy, but I think most people will find if you don't have them in direct sunlight, they're absolutely fine. And I know modern technology have been working towards stopping epoxy going yellow, but because it's epoxy, they're just not saying absolutely that it wouldn't yellow. But I know I've had them around for ages, and there's nothing's altered at all. Just be aware, epoxy resin can yellow. Okay, so I think I've stirred that well, and this is the fun bit. Like I say, fish isn't brilliant. But look at that. Doesn't that make a huge difference? I quite like just the round. Now, if I'd used the glazing resin, you're able to stop where it goes to. But this is working as a pouring, and so it's going to go up to the edges. I didn't need to give it much encouragement last time. It just seemed to work its way into the corners without much help. So I'm just pushing it up. Flat surface, you will know if your table's tilted. There you go, did it itself. One last thing. So this takes 24 hours to dry. But before it dries, I'm going to drop a little bit of acrylic ink into it. Now, it didn't work as well when I was trying it earlier, but I might put more white in, which might be the problem. I'm just dropping it in. Okay, now using stick, just going to swirl over the fish because it's the water. Doesn't always finish as you have it. It will change, and I think this breaks up a little bit. just want to put some more over the fish, not enough. So try it from this side. Just so it gives it that 3D effect. That's breaking up. I'm not going to know what it finishes like. It kind of continues to work. So maybe another bit here. You have to just stop yourself being over keen with it. I just want it to flow over the fish to show that the fish is underneath. Okay. So 24 hours for that to dry. What I could do is I could drop flakes in, drop glitter in while it's drying, let it dry. Once it's dried, what I could do, this is one, worked a little bit better, the colour's a little bit better. So now this is dried, what I could do is I can put grasses with either Pebeo medium, use a stick to create those textures, or acrylic paint, and then put another layer on. So you can keep layering. Obviously, you have to wait 24 hours between, so it takes time and a bit of thought, but that's a really fun way of kind of making a painting just suddenly come to life. And the same with the fish. I've seen people do them in different layers to give you a 3D effect. I'm not advanced like that or worked out how to break that down. So this is, initially flat, and then the resin just brings it to life. But there's lots of options. So, got to wait. Oh, see, that's nice to take something off and how it's changed even in those few minutes. So I'll leave that for 24 hours and let it dry. So lots of different things to work with there. And I'm sure you don't have to use the same pens as I do. You've got glitter hanging around, you've got your own glue, and you can do something with flowers or different subjects. So I hope you enjoyed that, and join me later in the week for another live demonstration.